My oldest son recently became engaged. And so I asked him this question. I said, "Hey, what are you going to do when your girlfriend, now fiance, no longer wants to have sex with you?" And he kind of looked at me like I was strange. Like, why are you asking me this question, mom? But I've been doing this podcast now long enough to realize that this is the number one concern with men. So I wanted to ask him, like, what he's going to do if or when the eventuality comes of that scenario happening. So he's like, well, maybe I'll just, I'd have to accept it. And, sex isn't everything. And there certainly are other age related problems that we do prepare for. Like we all know at 40 years old, our eyes are going to go to crap. Like we start noticing that our arm's just not long enough. But the majority of young people are not prepared for that moment in their marriage when all of a sudden a husband's like, my wife no longer wants to sleep with me. And the women aren't prepared for the moment that at 35, 40 years old, like things start getting dry down there. Like I never knew that was a thing. So if I didn't get that information, being the youngest of six girls in a very open family where we're not afraid to discuss things like that, I can only imagine in the majority of typical homes that these conversations are not being had. For most families, discussing anything regarding sex can be considered dirty, inappropriate, and it's really a disservice to our sons and to our daughters that these discussions of what's coming up is not being had. Nobody is telling these women, hey, there's going to come a day you don't want to sleep with your husband. You're going to love him, but you're just not going to think about it anymore. There's come a day where, it's like the Sahara Desert down there. This is going to happen. So what are you going to do about it? How are you going to prepare for that time, that eventuality that will arrive? And so these young couples are entering into marriage blissfully unaware of the roadblocks that lie ahead. And so the lack of awareness, not only from the female side, but also from the man's side, when the time comes, becomes an issue really that men primarily have to deal with because they are on the receiving end of that lack of drive. Sex becomes undesirable for her. It may be painful for her. It can be just flat unimportant to her. Like it literally just doesn't even cross her mind. You guys don't understand that despite her love for you, despite that she could look over at you and think you're the hottest piece of meat that she's ever seen, still have intense like love and adoration for you. And despite all of those things, have zero interest in hitting the sheets.